Welcome to Syncast powered by Commercient. I'm Heath McKnight. Joining me today is Taylor Backman, and he is the Senior Evangelist at Zoho. Taylor, thanks for joining me today. Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Heath. So I'm Taylor and a senior evangelist at Zoho, which means for 9 years I have been clarifying to people what that means. Um, Basically, I work between our product teams and our customers. We know we have 45, 50 different products. All of them are focused in their own world usually. So I'm someone who kind of works between all of them to help people understand what we're doing. And then similarly, I try to understand what those customers are doing and pass that information back to our product teams.
Excellent, excellent. I'm kind of an Apple nerd.
Oh, sure.
I remember the days when my dad, when I started college, and I have a film background. I haven't done that in a while, but I became kind of a big Mac nerd, and I'd read all the magazines, and I'd start hearing about, oh, this gentleman or this nice lady is an evangelist, and they love Apple, and this is what they do. And so I kind of have a broad idea, and you were kind of talking about it, but and you were explaining, but how did you get to that level of senior evangelist, and what are some of the great things that you've been able to do as senior evangelist?
Yeah, it's funny you mention Apple because Apple is, yeah, where that term I think comes from. And but so it's good to talk to people who know that. Otherwise, it's very confusing. People have literally asked me if I have some kind of religious job, like it's very funny. But yeah, I mean, I got into this completely by chance. I was studying literature at University of California, Santa Cruz. I
Mm,
finished that and I was moving to San Francisco with my girlfriend, needed a job. I just happened to get connected with Zoho by a former professor who had been recruited into the company. And through a series of random jobs basically within Zoho. I've just kind of taken on more things basically. That's the briefest way I can put it, but it hasn't really been a straight line by any
yeah.
means. But as far as favorite things, I mean, I really enjoy Zoholics. As obviously doing the evangelist thing, you're out trying to talk to the people, and there's no better place to do that than our flagship event that we're having in Austin on June 5th and 6th. And so
Mm.
it's yeah, that's really the best part.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's an awesome segue, because I want to talk about Zoholics, and then I'll probably kind of do a little turn and get back to talking a little bit more about Zoho, especially as it relates to Commercient, because we, work a lot in that Zoho CRM space. But Zoholics, I mean, I feel like I was just saying Happy New Year last week, but here we are. It's May 1st. I mean, this year's flying by, and Zoholics is coming up, and Commercient, we're going to be there. And I was wondering, what can attendees expect? It looks like a great lineup of speakers, including yourself. And what can we expect from Zoholics this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for people who are familiar with the kind of big software conferences, we have kind of, I think, a unique approach in the way that we do it. We try to keep it as down to earth and friendly and informative as possible. I think that one thing that really is special about Zoholics is that we have a very service-oriented approach, and we are there to try to help every single person, regardless of where they're at with Zoho. So you might be brand new and trying to just get your bearings in this large ecosystem, or you're someone who's been around literally 15 years using our products and uses 25 of them, and you're looking to learn what is the latest and greatest, how do I keep taking this further? So there's a really great mix of people, and yeah, I mean this year it'll be our biggest yet at the Austin Convention Center. over 14 tracks that are organized in different functional areas across sales, marketing, support, finance,
Mm,
developers, what have you. There's some workshops that are going on. And there's a big expo hall where, like you said, companies like yourself will be exhibiting. We have our experience center, which is where we have tons of product experts that are available to
mm.
answer just ad hoc questions, give quick little demos. And then we, of course, have our one-on-ones that we do. Every attendee can get a half-hour technical one-on-one.
Wow.
Sit down with them and help them with whatever they're trying to do.
Excellent. Excellent. So if I were an attendee, I'd want to, not only go in and learn a lot about Zoho. I love the broad all the way down to those one-on-ones. But because it's in Austin, which is a pretty cool place, I could also kind of turn into a nice vacation. So
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Now, how I'm going to kind of make this kind of a broad question, but
Sure.
how does Zoho prepare for such a large event like this?
We do I mean we start planning early and
Mhm.
that's the key.
Yeah.
Uh it seems that we always should be planning earlier and earlier. But we have as a global company, I mean, we have over 100 million users, and we do Zoholics events in, I think, now 25 countries.
Mm,
So we're pretty good at it at this point. And there's always new challenges when you're making the event bigger or you're expanding new kind of features of the event. But it's really just planning and just trying to collaborate across all of our different teams to make sure everybody's clued in and happy and that we're putting on the best show for our customers.
excellent. Excellent. And what I'm getting way ahead, but
No,
what do you think one of the biggest takeaways for people attending Zoholics, and if you can't reveal anything, I understand, but what would be one of the biggest takeaways in your mind when that people should be looking out for while attending?
yeah, I can't spoil any news that we are going to be releasing there, but what I can say is I think there's usually two things that customers walk away from with Zoholics. One, they get exposed to kind of the full Zoho story.
Mm,
With so many applications and products that we do, and then with a product like Zoho One, which encompasses everything we do and is really, I think, our strongest differentiator, it's easy to not fully understand how things fit together.
mhm.
And so I think that people are often surprised to find that as they keep asking, could I do this? Could I do this? The answer keeps going, yes, yes, there's a session over there, there's a session over there. And so I think the scale of what Zoho's doing is something that people see. But then second, and this is primarily because we're an online business, they see that there's a lot of people who work at Zoho, pretty much everyone you're going to meet at the event who cares about you and
That's
genuinely
awesome.
wants you to succeed. And that, I mean, we have a very simple kind of way of going in. Do not let a single customer eat lunch alone.
Oh,
They've
that's
come,
cool.
they've spent the money, they're here, they're taking a lot of time out of their life and work schedule to be here. Sit with them, talk to them about whatever, talk to them about film. I saw the
Yeah.
red a couple months ago and it blew my mind, right? I
Yeah.
loved it, right? So I mean, there's all sorts of fun conversations that can be had just away from the software stuff. But yeah, just make sure that we do our best to just make people feel comfortable and welcome.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So, quick little story. I used to go to conferences in the past. I prior to Commercient, I was involved not in film production, but covering film production, and I
Mm.
would go to these conferences, New York, Vegas, trade shows here and there. And at one point, I worked for a company where they kind of threw me in and just said, "You're going to be public speaking." And I'm like, oh boy. And I was talking about what at the time was like the newest HD, which, HD cameras 20 plus years ago were, they cost a house 100 to 300 grand. And
Yeah.
suddenly they were cheaper. So here I am, I became an expert and I was talking about it. And I'm like, how, I went from just kind of a shy guy that went to film school and had some experience and wrote about it to speaking publicly. And I did a little bit of research and I saw a couple of your Zoholics, and I think you're an awesome speaker, very comfortable. And I know that there are people out there kind of looking kind of how do you do that? How do you get up there and kind of not only give like the instruction and not let it get dry, but get people like, yeah, this is going to be great for my company, but also listening to the customers and kind of becoming on the other side of the coin, that customer voice. So I guess the question is, with public speaking, how did you become so comfortable with it? And then to be able to really bring that message of Zoho to people that are attending these events?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've generally been comfortable with public speaking. I think the thing that probably has helped me the most, I did stand up for a while when I
Oh,
was
cool.
like I was maybe 18 or 19. And that's a miserable experience, of a lot of brutal shows and all sorts of things. So
Yeah.
a software conference with an audience that has paid money to be there and generally wants to hear what you're saying is very easy.
Yeah.
Trying to tell people your random joke that are just trying to have their coffee at an open mic night and don't want to hear from you, that's a lot harder. Uh, but yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably where the experience has come, but it's just reps more than anything, and you find your own kind of way of being up there, and like I said, with something like Zoholics being something that's very down to earth,
Yeah.
I never have to pretend to be someone that I'm not. I don't have to be Mr. Business. And even, as much as I enjoy like the Apple keynotes and stuff like that, they have a
Yeah.
certain vibe.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how well I would do in that vibe.
Yeah.
It would be a real effort to shift to that. So if you can just be yourself, that also really helps.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because being the Apple nerd that I am, I still, whenever they announce a new iPhone, I still like to go back and watch highlights because I'm such a nerd of Steve Jobs announcing,
Sure.
in early '07. But also my experience with some trade shows is kind of like they are, I think, not the trade shows themselves, but because they have various companies, but a theme behind it. I think some of the people that are going to do an announcement or do something, they kind of don't go with like what the vibe of that conference would be, and they try to come at it as kind of like running out on stage, trying to be over the top, trying to basically, like, I just imagine they're all trying to be like Steve Jobs, who never really was over the top but could really command the stage. And I really appreciate that because, yeah, the Zoholics, it strikes me as just something where, man, this is really cool. I can get like I said, the big broad view of what's happening down to, man, I'll tell you what, I think the Zoho CRM, for example, could help me do XYZ. How could I do that? Well, you could go over here to this quick conference, or or get a one-on-one and everything. Um, I'm going to come back to Zoholics because I'm going to ask you like what your top tips are at the end
Sure.
for getting the
Sure.
most out of it. But I also find it interesting that you're kind of almost, when you listen to the customers, you're kind of becoming the voice of the customer and presenting it to the team. And I was reading something from a few years ago last night, just for the heck of it, some business stuff about failed uh, disruptive technology and everything. And it was somebody who made technology to do grilled cheese. And when it didn't really go anywhere, they hired an actual person from the restaurant. And the first thing he said was he listened to the customers and gave them what they want to a point. And I think that's something that I think every business strives for. And I was wondering, how when you are talking to customers, big enterprise down to small businesses, what are some of the things that you ask them and that you can kind of bring back to the team working on all these great apps?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I mean, customers usually are not shy about giving criticism, right?
Yeah.
So you just so in on so on that level, you just have to listen. You just have to listen. And too often, I think there's one of two things that happen. One, we either try to sell, which means we try to circumvent the criticism, or
Mm,
we are trying to fix it. And I can't fix it like in this conversation. So I'm not going to try to. I'm going to just listen. And I think that if you are able to do that and you can just try to empathize with people, you'll find that they're relieved that there's someone that seems to care. And
yeah.
as you ask more questions, um, you're able to dive into the things that actually matter that you need to figure out. Because sometimes, realistically, I'm, listening to someone complain about something that's not a problem. I
Yeah.
know for a fact that it's not an issue and that I can help them with that.
Mm,
So, but instead of but instead of maybe getting down that rabbit hole, it's like, okay, well, how about these other things? And maybe we can get to the issue. But I
mm.
think fundamentally, just trying to listen rather than immediately fix or sell is key.
Excellent, excellent. And talking a little bit about some of the products you mentioned, Zoho One, and we have some great consulting partners of Zoho, and I've spoken to them, and they're kind of in a way an evangelist for your products, and they talk highly about it. And Zoho CRM is kind of like one of the main things that Commercient works with. That is, we integrate key data from ERPs, QuickBooks up to SAP, Syspro, Sage, et cetera. And I was wondering if we could talk just a little bit about Zoho CRM. And I say this all the time, Taylor, and you probably hear it all the time. And I think it's been this way for the 3/4 of a decade I've been with Commercient. A lot of companies don't have a CRM. They're still, post-it notes. They're still spreadsheets, copies of spreadsheets, copies of the copy of the, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I've even heard people say, yeah, it's in the main salesperson's head, but we have no idea what's going
Yeah.
on. And what does Zoho CRM, and I know there's a lot of other great apps, but what does Zoho CRM do for businesses that are kind of stuck on that plateau and need to get off of it and get their sales growing, get their customer base, just basically digital transformation and back in the right direction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, obviously, as you alluded to, the CRM just as a tool is a very important kind of function within an organization. I think that Zoho CRM is extremely user friendly, while at the same time having the deep capabilities to structure a sales process and automate it. And then the third piece would be then connecting that within a additional set of tools.
Mm,
And so because that becomes very important, the integrations that work with the sales marketing tools, the financial tools, quoting, invoicing, digital signatures, all of that has to work together. Otherwise, the sales team won't actually be able to do their job.
yeah,
So I think that those are the key things. The approachability, which is probably the single most important thing, because the dirty secret, right, with CRM is that salespeople don't like using them. So, and so you have to make sure that you can give them something that they want to use and that they're comfortable using and that's not confusing.
Mm,
And so Zoho CRM does that very well. And then, like I said, all the functionality integration that comes with it is very important.
yeah, and have something like Zoho One, or even just a couple of them. It's one less passwords, one less payment, SaaS fee. It's one less headache of, is this compatible or not? And then, with Commercient syncing in that important information like invoicing, order history. So that way, when a salesperson is looking in Zoho on their iPhone or Galaxy before they go into a meeting with a customer, they can see really quick what they last ordered and everything. Any tips for optimizing Zoho CRM to really get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think my number one tip for all software usage, look at your requirements, think about your requirements, stop thinking about the tool so much.
Mm,
Start with the requirements, and as the manager or the executive or whatever, obviously start with the things that you want to accomplish, sure. But then to the point that was made earlier, go talk to your employees,
yeah.
figure out what they're not happy about. Why can't you get them to stop using the post-it notes, right?
Mhm.
There's a reason. It
Yeah.
might be a kooky reason or a good reason or a bad reason, but there's a reason. Figure out what it is. How can we now, because obviously there's a downside to post-it notes. So they'll tell you what the downside is. They'll complain about it, even if they prefer this process. Well, address the complaint.
Yeah.
Make that then a key part of your strategy to take the next step. And that could be wherever you're at, whether you're starting with a CRM for the first time or you're looking to move forward. You always have to handle the people side of things if the technology is actually going to be effective. And so having a clear idea of what you're trying to do and having clear input from the people who are going to be using the tool is always going to help. Once you know that, now you can talk to partners, you can talk to um, vendors, and you are in the driver's seat in knowing what you're trying to get.
Mhm.
And solution can be built to those requirements rather than the other way around, selling the solution that you may not need, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like another big thing is buy-in from the leadership.
Oh,
And I've heard horror stories. It doesn't matter the CRM, doesn't matter how much money they spent overall, meaning like, did they have 5 salespeople or did they have 500 salespeople? And the executive may have said, hey, we're going to do this. But then if the executive has no buy-in, if the executive is still doing the old ways, and I think like everything starts at the top. So there is a reason why they're all using post-it notes. Maybe the sales manager started it and they're all just like, yeah, I'll do the same thing and I'll put that order on the door jam, hope it doesn't fall because you'll never get your order type of a situation. But I have heard that over and over, that they say the Zoho consultants goes back to the CEO or the VP of sales and says, change management, you need to buy in, you need to encourage them as well. Otherwise, like you, they will go back to their old habits again. And then the software is just sitting there, collecting virtual dust.
totally. Yeah, you're totally right. There's definitely a lot of instances I've seen where sales managers want to make a change and they can't get a senior person to buy into it to change their ways and they get stuck.
Mm,
It can happen from every which way,
yeah.
and and so that's what I mean. I think, having a clear idea of what is your process, that's another thing that's amusing, is there's plenty of companies that have brought us in to help them with their CRM. And we then sit in a meeting for literally a whole day while senior
Mm.
people in a company argue about what their sales process is, right?
Oh.
So you have to have clarity on what your processes are, and you
Mhm.
have to have clarity on where you're trying to go. And that has to be a group effort. The beautiful thing about it, it's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's cheap. You can do it with a piece of paper and a pen and with people that you're sitting with. No technology needed, very low technology to do that. But that's really the most important point. And I think where people get into trouble or they end up wasting a lot of time and money is when they don't have that clarity. And
Mm.
um, and like I said, it makes the whole buying experience and making sure you're getting something that actually is going to fit your needs much easier.
Excellent. And I sometimes ask this because you've probably heard all the horror stories that finally led to kind of like that tipping point of saying, okay, we got to get Zoho CRM. Do you happen to have like a favorite horror story that you heard from a customer, big
Uh,
lost sale, anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, there's always weird things that have happened. I'm trying to think. I'm not,
That's okay. I,
one
I've
thing I'd
I've heard
say,
some crazy stuff, but
oh
yeah.
no, I
So
know. There's always crazy stuff. I mean, one thing that, I mean, things can always go wrong. So I never like to kick people for things going wrong.
Yeah.
But what I will say is one of my favorite stories actually is around having a good idea. And again, this is my advice to customers. Always make sure you know what the rules are
Mhm.
for putting your data with a company, and always know going in before you sign a contract if you're going to be able to easily move that data out.
Mhm.
One of my favorite stories, a company decides they want to move their data. They want to leave a vendor and move to a different vendor. And the vendor says, no problem, we'll give you your data. They then printed it out on literal paper and handed it to them in a huge stack that big and said,
Oh
here you
my
go.
goodness.
And they said, if you want to leave, there's your data. And that obviously is a tactic to get someone to sign a contract, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine a crazier
I've never heard that
method,
before.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that I would say is one of the wildest things I've heard. So yeah, and there's a tip there, right? Which is just make sure that you look into those
Yeah. Yeah.
migration, transference, and storage policies and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate what you were saying. You don't want you stay positive and everything. I think the one that I talk to a lot of our customers, and I work on case studies in addition to the other things that I do at Commercient. And there was a customer, they do big sales, but I didn't have a grasp. And he said, the impetus for us to get CRM was we would do all our orders via email, B2B. And they get so many emails that they would miss an email. And on average, that was like a 75 to $100,000 lost sale.
Sure.
And I'm like, I almost fell out of my chair. I could not believe it. But that's why I think CRMs are so great at just being able to keep track of that and to be able to really streamline the ordering process, whether it's you're just ordering, a customer's just ordering a few things, or they're putting in that multi-$100,000 order for widgets, so to speak. Now, kind of circling back and wrapping up our call to Zoholics, if I were attending and I were brand new visiting as a customer, or just somebody who's really interested to learn more, what would be your top tips to get the most out of Zoholics, especially those first time attendees?
Yeah, I would say my top tips are enjoy all of the great food that's available. That's a number one
Wow.
tip, right?
I've
But
heard the food. Yeah.
the main tips though, on the honest tips are go to the keynotes, get a chance to see Sridhar, our CEO, talk,
Cool.
Raj Gesna, our chief evangelist, and you'll get a good sense of kind of what the company's about. The company's private. We've been going for over 25 years,
Wow.
and all of these, senior executives, I mean, they've been here from the beginning basically, and their goal is to try to build just a great company. That's really what they're just trying to do. So you can hear that kind of stuff just to start. But beyond that, I think going to our experience center is really important because you'll be able to just talk to different Zoho employees and hear what's going on with different products. Obviously, there's a bunch of sessions you can go to that you can find, but being able just to go and talk to people, ask questions, ask about the roadmap. Maybe there's some solution you see you think could work and you have a specific detail for your industry that you want to bring up. There's really no better place to do that. A one-on-one, if you're a little further and you've actually gotten into the products and you do
Mm.
need some help, that's obviously really important. And then finally, we have some customer meetups that we do, and that's a great place to be able to go and have a structured time to meet other Zoho users and customers. And even if you have nothing to really contribute and just a few basic questions to ask, you'll hear it from them. And I'm a huge advocate of that because we do so much talking at these events, and we have so much that we can tell our customers. But at the end of the day, I think it's always nice to be able just to ask someone who's sitting next to you and go, what are you actually doing with this? And having that conversation, because there's nothing better than that.
Awesome. And I can tell the culture and just the people that have been there for many years, from when I spoke with Bear Ravenscroft a few months ago, and just you can kind of tell. And also just I like kind of that just that overall, like you said, how Zoholics is and everything. It just seems like everybody's just really cool, very passionate, but cool and everything. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that I could really get that from you and Bear about that kind of culture in the company that just sounds really positive and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, trying to be passionate, trying to, as we say, live by our convictions that are within the company.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, not being a maniac, try to be friendly.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate this was a great call, Taylor. And how can people watching and listening learn a little bit more about Zoho and Zoholics?
You can go to our website for Zoholics. I don't know what the URL is, but the best, which is not a good thing, honestly. The best thing is just Google Zoholics 2024, and it'll pop right up.
Excellent.
But to get a flavor of the kind of sessions, then YouTube is a great resource. You can
Yeah.
check past sessions. And as you said, I have good ones. So, you can watch those and enjoy them. And you might even say, hey, you know what? I've had enough of Taylor. I don't need to come. So that's fine too.
Awesome. Thank you again for this great call. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Heath. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching and listening to Syncast powered by Commercient. If you'd like to learn more about Sync, ERP, and CRM data integration, please visit our website, commercient.com. Thank you.